Alright, hello everyone, my name is Disc, and in this video we have a level 17 Mists of Tirna Scithe. This is a total pug, but it was a really good run overall. This was a 0 death run, so pretty proud of that. This is a heavy Dominate Mind dungeon, which we will see from start to finish. I'm not going to go into too much of the specifics. We are going to talk about it in the video, but please reference my other video on Dominate Mind specifically if you want the details of my approach, but we will be using Dominate Mind throughout the entire dungeon, so stay tuned for that. But before we get started, I wanted to thank everyone for tuning in. I really appreciate the viewership. I'm also a teacher on metafy.gg, so if you're interested in a one-on-one lesson, please go check me out over there. There are a lot of things I'm offering, and I always kind of lean into a one-on-one environment being a better place for learning, so please go check out my metafy.gg. Also, we're going to have a focus on UI in this video. I've made a lot of changes and landed in a really good spot come the end of this season. I will always promote UI as being something very, very important for success. That is something we can talk about through Metafy, or if you simply just want any of my import codes, please consider joining the channel as a member. I do plan on making a pretty large update going into the new patch just for some extra excitement. I made a lot of changes to my stuff here, and it's about time I update you guys. But before we get any further into this video, I did want to quickly splash the talents up here. I'm not going to talk too much about it, but I'm just highlighting that we're taking Phantom Reach. I think this is a must anytime you're playing Dominate Mind. It just gives you a little bit of extra wiggle room. And then, yeah, if you have any questions about any of this, please ask questions. I am hard into Enduring Luminescence these days. I think this is going to be the better choice node for you when you're confident in your rotation. I think if you're a little bit newer to Discipline, perhaps the Bright Pupil, but the Enduring Luminescence is what we're going to be playing in this key. And then I kind of want to get back to my roots with these videos and splash the damage here like I used to do. This is pretty expected, pretty common to see a spread like this for our damage, but this is really indicative of your healing overall as having a strong damage rotation. That's just how we operate. So we always want to see the Entropic Rift and Void Wraith vying for first and second. Depending on the dungeon, you'll see different splits here, but this dungeon, they're kind of neck and neck. And then Dark Reprimand is in a nice, healthy third place, really getting as much Harsh Discipline in play as possible, casting as many Radiance as we can, spamming for those Void Blasts. We also see a line item in here for the Mind Control, so he's doing a pretty good amount, just kind of tagging along the whole time. And then, yeah, so the last thing maybe to point out here, we've not really ever focused on this, but my dot uptime is right at 90%. You want to see your dot uptime in the 90 range. Mine was a little off here, but 90 is still a good number to aim for, especially coming up into 11.1. We have more weights. We have more weight with our dots, so we really have to get comfortable with that mini game of keeping our dot spread active with penance. Very, very important. But the other mini games to focus on here, if you're really trying to amplify your disc play, there's a lot of fun in these mini games, and they are really going to take you from 0 to 100 the better you do them. So we have our torment spells. Very, very important to hit our torment rotation. We need to aim for 6 torments as a baseline, strive for 8 with executes. 5 is okay sometimes, but we really want to aim for an average of like 6+. And then our torment rotation really doesn't mean much unless we're timing our torment rotation well. So we use things like bigwigs to help time our spells. Then we have the important minigame of defensives. So we really have to be on top of playing Fade anytime there's damage, and Desperate Prayer as well, situationally. And then not to forget, the minigame that we're going to have the entirety of this dungeon is playing with the Dominate Mind. So that has to be a focus that we keep in the back of our mind. And then in this dungeon as well, especially at the 17 range, we have to be really quick with our targeted cast Weakar. So we're going to have a lot of people highlighting white, meaning that they are about to take damage, and these are major moments for shields. So we have to get in good habit of playing shields on these. It is one of the best utilities a healer can bring to a dungeon. Sucks that we're losing Rapture, but yeah, let me know what you guys think of the patch coming up and all of the changes. I'm pretty excited for it. I know I didn't make a specific video on it, but maybe I'll do that today as well. But anyway, without further ado, let's go ahead and clip over to the key. All right, here we go. So this is a
5,
heavy mind
4,
control dungeon. I did a
3,
really good job here, so
2,
pay attention
1.
to that. I am going to try and call the shots as I see them without too much of a focus, but we're carrying the mind control throughout the entire key. We have an enhancement shaman. I'm sorry, we have an elite shaman? I forget what he is. And also pay attention to, notice we have all of our group defense spells grouped right above my player frame. Very important to set that stagger as the healer. I'm calling this in Discord. There's our first PI on the elemental. And the goal here, stand in melee and hit your torment rotation the best you can. So let's see how many torment spells I get here. Fishing for a couple of executes. And I got 6 torments. It looks like I could have gotten 8 there, but 6 is a-okay. Here goes the second rift. So, being that this is a 17, it's quite a bit different of a play, like even if you're in 14s, 15s. You really need to aim for as many rounds of your pet and rift as possible. This one just happened to be 1 pet, 2 rifts, but in these higher keys, a lot of pulls take 2 pets, 2 rifts. So there's something you gotta think about. And yeah, I'm really excited about my UI, so chime in if you guys like any of these changes. But a UI is really only, it really only matters what your UI is like in combat. So notice about half of my UI hides as soon as I enter combat, things that don't matter like my chat box, most of my details frames, all the buttons on the right. So I really like that change. I really like the change grouping our group defense spells together. I think that is a really good change. Also, I've changed my grid 2 quite a bit. Okay, but here we go. We have the pull. So on a pull like this, we do want to send the pet and rift ASAP. And that's because we want to fit 1 round in before they reach 50%. And we do see that tick mark on their health bar. Okay, so we got 5 torments. Not the best window, but now we really have to fiend to get our pet back. So I see 20-second on pet. The mobs are at 60% health. We really got to spam. And this is an all defense play. We're going to be casting Barrier, Desperate Prayer, and Fade, our personal defensives. And we have to get the pet and rift out a little preemptive of the damage. We had AG and Vigil running for the win. And 7 torments. So from here on out, we're going to start seeing the mind control come into play. Notice on the nameplate, we have that blue bar that attaches. That's not the best example, but that's marking that the debuff has been applied. It's a 20% damage amplifier.
Breaking in 10.
And you'll also hear I have audible cues in English telling me that it's breaking in 10. I've timed it out, and to move the pet furthest away from you takes about 7 seconds. So my warning is 10 seconds. Then I have a macro to recapture. I have a really good keybind to move the pet as well. Okay, but here we go. On pull, we really got to focus. Debuff is applied. We want to send 1 pet and rift at the start.
Breaking in 10.
Okay, sending the pet away.
Breaking.
So I have the keybind for sending the pet away as alt left click, and then I lay the green circle down with left click. It is a really nice flow as far as keybinds. And here comes the Embrace Darkness. This is the only time we really have to time our heals in this fight. And after the first pet and rift, I just prepared my second pet and rift for this moment. So here it goes.
Breaking in 10.
Oh, I forgot about that. So I did this last night. Thankfully, we didn't wipe there. That is really spooky. I think I hit my keybind to cancel the mind control. We almost got boinked. But at this moment, playing a little bit of Raptures, PIs on time. The debuff is applied on time. And the only critique on myself is I did not have my pet for the phase. Canceling my rift right before the phase ends is a really good way to amplify your damage. But yeah, so in a perfect world, you'd have your pet and your rift there. I messed it up slightly. I think it was due to the fumble with the mind control. But thankfully, we made it through. I had my PI on time. I had the mind control's debuff on time. And that is really the best thing you can do as the healer, leaving the DPS to your actual DPS. But I do get a better round
in 10.
coming up, so pay attention.
Breaking.
So if you do want to see my breakdown of how I play mind control, I do have a dedicated video on it just focusing on this boss. But anytime I'm sending the pet far away from me to kind of set for the recapture, it's also disabling his autocast. And that is very important because we want that debuff when we want it. And if you kind of just let it go to autocast,
Breaking in 10.
that very fleeting damage phase, you likely won't have the spell.
Breaking.
Okay, so here's a barrier. My pet is 15 seconds away. I really want my pet for this next damage phase. Getting a couple raptures out. Desperate Prayer and Fade is always great in these windows. I have a double
Breaking
Harsh
in
Discipline
10.
proc. Debuff is applied. Here goes my pet and rift. And the only thing I'm thinking about here is
Breaking.
getting 2 penance into my rift and canceling it before the damage phase ends. And that's what I did there too. I think I missed my second penance, but it was a lot better overall. I canceled my rift during the damage phase. If you just let it play out naturally, your rift will cancel after the damage phase, and your collapse is a major hitter. So having it hit on the amplified
Breaking in
damage
10.
is very important. Sent another rift just with an early collapse.
Breaking.
Let's get this pet recapture, thanks to Phantom Reach. And here I have a little bit of a fumble. I think I figured out what the problem was now, so maybe someone can learn from this. But the call in Discord is they want me to send my pet through the wall to pull. And watch how I do it. I try like 5 or 6 times.
Breaking in 10.
Technically, that green circle when I'm trying to send him through, we'll get some better examples here in a second, it's actually hitting on the wall and it's not going through to the room. And I think it just had to do with the position of my cursor. But the group does, yeah, that's hitting the wall. The group does fall in a little bit of a predicament here. And that's because I'm spending so much time trying to send this guy over. There we go.
Breaking in
I
10.
finally got him over, but it's arguably too late because this pull's already done, but we're getting what we're getting.
Breaking.
So rapturing the group, I have my pet in Rift. Really important in these pulls to watch who gets the targeted cast weak aura. Oh well, I wouldn't have lived if that weren't for a paints up. The targeted cast weak aura means someone's about to get charged. You really need to shield them at this level. And our focus call here was the Stalker. Looks like I lost a little bit of my schism on that round, just because it died so quickly. But at the end of the day, a win is a win.
Breaking in 10.
And we have 7 torments. Yeah, so anytime I hear the cue for breaking in 10, that's when I send it away.
Breaking.
And I think that is good timing. Alright, and then we have decided ahead of time that the maze game, minigame, is going to be a team effort. I really think at a high level, when you're playing mind control the whole way, it needs to be a team effort again. It can't be something just the healer does. I can't play the maze minigame while playing the dominate mind minigame while healing. It's just a little bit too much. And call me a baby if you want, but I've done it all season. I'm just putting my foot down at this point. Okay, so first pet rift was out. We have one more rift to give. Here goes the second rift. see. In a moment like this, I should really try and keep my dots up. Looks like I
Breaking in
forfeited
10.
some dots, but that's okay. Yeah, and I like using that 1 through 8 rolled marker to mark in mists.
Breaking.
Nice macro. And I'm getting one more rift. I think depending, maybe if you play this back, an argument to, I could have gotten 2 pets in this segment. But it looks like I only got 1 pet, but 3 rifts. Really just trying to
Breaking
bank
in
that
10.
pet for pull of the next segment. Okay, we have a big elite
Breaking.
guy. Okay, so I have the guy coming at me. Starting my rotation. And my macro for Dominate Mine starts with a target line. So it says target the Soul Cleaver, cast Dominate Mine. So it's a really nice way to recapture your mind control without the fumbling of finding your target. Then I have a
Breaking
focus
intent.
target on the mob, obviously, so I just return my focus. And notice he is debuffed at the moment. That is what we want. That is 10%.
Breaking.
The thing with autocast on this spell is it doesn't fire it on cooldown. So sometimes you do have to force it. And what I'm doing is I'm kind of just clicking the spell when it lines up with my cooldown, just to keep it rolling. Yeah, like right now, for example, it's not firing. If anyone has an answer to why,
Breaking in 10.
because he's not on passive, but it's kind of just not firing on cooldown. Maybe we can watch the next one.
Breaking.
Also, right there's a good example. You'll probably notice throughout the keys, all my keys these days, I've started tracking Tempered in Battle. So it acts as a buff, ironically, not a debuff, but it drains health from your Paladin and someone else on your team. And it's really important to see that because it can lead to death so quickly if it's
Breaking
not something
intent.
you're doing, reacting to.
Breaking.
Yeah, so I have it appear as just a red dotted line as any of my debuffs or bleeds would, but it's pretty obvious to tell when it's a Tempered in Battle because there's usually no other dots applied. I'll try and call the next one. Okay, so we had 1 pet and we had 2 rifts,
Breaking in 10.
and I believe we're just prepping for the next pull. And it looks like I'm still doing the maze. I think I'd have to
Breaking.
listen back to our Discord call, but I think the play was, since we have 3 ranged here, they were just going to kind of stand on one podium and just let me grab it. I really rather not do it at all throughout the maze as the priest. I think it's the Aug's job, but we don't have an Aug. Okay, and our focus here, I believe in Discord we're calling Guardian. So here goes
Breaking
the pet and the
intent.
rift. That was an amazing stop from the warrior, I think that was.
Breaking.
Oh. Yeah, and also brought in this new add-on. So I used to use a Weakar that would help me track crowd control. But the only problem that I ran into was a little bit incomplete because it didn't track spell locks. And the problem with spell locks is generally they're not aura based.
Breaking in 10.
Okay, here goes my second pet. Generally they're not aura based, but I still kind of want to see them even though I'm the priest.
Breaking.
So I found an add-on that does it all. So the way my nameplates are set up, top of my nameplates are my debuffs only. Pretty much my Purge the Wicked. Left of nameplate is enemy cooldowns, which I use sparingly, like right here we don't have any cooldowns tracked. And then the right of nameplates are crowd controls and spell locks. And yeah, arguably I don't need to see spell locks and interrupts as
Breaking
the
in 10.
priest. But I kind of just want to. It's kind of nice to see that those are being played. I think there's an argument to maximize your
Breaking.
play of Psychic Scream. To see kind of as stops are happening real time is important. Okay, so our focus target here is the Guardian again. And I've slightly changed my rotation too. I think maybe it's more obvious than I thought at first, but
Breaking
after
in
our
10.
Mind Blast, our next penance is always buffed by Power of the Dark Side. Therefore, we generally want to lead into our rotation with a Radiance. So we get
Breaking.
the extra bolts from the Radiance plus the guaranteed Power of the Dark Side. It makes our first... it makes our first penance hit a lot harder. What am I saying? Okay, so we have some Tempered in Battle. Here goes our second Rift. And that's a power move of mine as well.
Breaking in 10.
I think it saves cast time a little. So instead of like the Shaman right there, he was punted through the air by the charge.
Breaking.
I gripped him immediately after, and it pulls him back to earth. And he can get casting again. We didn't do this one well.
Breaking in 10.
Thankfully, someone else figured it out. Okay, so a little bit tricky here. I'm trying to mount with the pet. You can't reposition him while
Breaking.
mounting, so I had to kind of just dismount. Or PI. And send him away from me. So, if anyone watched my last full Mist video, I play it here a little bit differently, especially because we're on a 17. Per each round, so we see each round indicated on the nameplate with tick marks. I want 2 pets and 2 rifts per round. Okay, so potentially not this first round because we had all spells and lust, but let's watch the next one. So
Breaking
we have
in
Barrier,
10.
Rally, and Vigil. Let's see which group defense we play here. Always playing Desperate Prayer and Fade in these moments.
Breaking.
Okay, we have Rally played. And there is a technique here we're going to highlight on the next intermission phase. This was not the best example due to the timing of everything. I couldn't move, heal, and recapture my Dominate Mind to get in position. But those the balls that shoot
Breaking
out
in
are
10.
offensive to anything, so they can play a big assist in getting down the illusion.
Breaking.
Is that what they're called? Okay, so here's my first pet and rift. Let's see if I get that second pet and rift. 6 torments, that's all we can do. And then I believe what I do is just spam smite to get the pet back real quick. Yep. Lead with a radiance. There goes the pet.
Breaking
Here's
in
second
10.
pet, second rift. And I don't often do that where I just spend time spamming smite. But I think you get
Breaking.
a little more juice out of your squeeze or whatever doing it that way. Okay, we got another 6 torments. And all we have on this next phase, it looks like we have Barrier. AG's available. Let's see what's played. Then also watch how we position here. So we want to position opposite the illusion. And the
Breaking in
balls
10.
kill it. So that was perfect. That's exactly what you want to do. Speeds it up. You can save cooldown, save defensives.
Breaking.
It's really good technique. And let's see here. Radiance into Pet and Rift. I have my second PI. Going to the Druid this time just to get a little more uptime. So one thing to note with our Elemental, he's playing 3 minute. I
Breaking
think the best thing you
intent.
can do with a 3-minute class is bounce your PI around situationally. So you still want to queue PI on the Ascendants as much as you
Breaking.
can. But we also don't want too much downtime of the PI just waiting for the 3-minute Ascendants. So in a case like this, yeah, I sit on the Druid. I think that is just fine. Because the way it would go is if I hold for the Shaman every time, in the end we're going to be missing about 5 PIs. I just don't think that helps the overall.
Breaking in 10.
Okay, so we pre-raptured. We have to get into place here. And I am putting the Schism
Breaking.
on the boss. you can still execute the boss. And my last Dark Reprimand here goes into the Schism. So, yeah, I could have schismed the illusion, but I kind of like keeping the Schism on the boss there. And even though he's taking less damage in that phase, it doesn't impact your atonement healing. So you can still execute him to get the extra heals, and it is kind of necessary. Okay, and here we're calling in Discord. I'm just going to leave this guy out if anyone needs it for like their tier set or like CDR. I know a lot of people always like complain about like Tempest or tier set or I don't know. But we're keeping him out for a second, just waiting for the gate open. Then we're going to recapture and run. And through these phases, it's really important to play group defense, personal defense on these big, I think they're called Acid Novas, but we're going to be tracking it on the nameplate of the Spine Maw here. So that's really the only thing that can hurt us. And we have to queue spells on each one. So let's see what we play first. I might be calling for Rally. Let's see what he does. Yep, we have Rally and Fade as the pair. Here's PI on the enhancement. And I had a good grip coming up, so in these phases it's not a bad idea to keep an eye on your teammates. Party nameplates for the win. And you can grip them for safety. Okay, first Pent Rift is done. Here goes the second Rift. Casting my Radiance on the Druid, who's in the middle of our party cluster. Kind of excited to see that 30-yard range go away. What do y'all think? I think here comes the grip. Boom. Love it. Okay, so we have another AoE attack here. I believe the first call is Barrier. So the attack is happening in 6 seconds. I want to lay the Barrier down. Radiance straight into Pent Rift. You and Fade as well as the supplementary defensive. I got 2 executes there to recover the health for the win. Switching targets to preserve my dots. And we have one more attack coming here. I'm calling for personal defensives. If you notice, we don't have any in group. But I do give a couple of Raptures to kind of coat. So I was sitting at a 2 stack of Pain Sup. That's not really great, especially if you have a Rapture to give. So a really powered play, which I did there, I guess the subject is moot coming up. But I Pain Sup the tank and quickly Rapture the team. I think that's a strong play. Okay, so we're losing range, and I have to capture the mind control here. So it's getting a little hectic. Good sack on the warrior there. Everyone's atoned for the leniency. Radiance into Pet and Rift. Oh yeah, so I forgot. So notice, or if you notice, my pet did not cast, but I think that's just fine because we're only going to get one here anyway. So only the Rift cast to start, and then when I noticed, I weaved the pet in once my other torment spells were available. Let's see, I believe I get one more pet here. We have no defensives in party. A personal shield and Fade. So
Breaking in 10.
A little spooky. But something to always remember with our shield. You know, basically we get 1 per any given attack. You should always consider it as a personal defensive. So situationally that might be a defensive for someone else. But if you kind of just have one to give and it's in the heat of the moment, at least give it to yourself. And that is what kind of got us through there. I look at it as death prevention. So even if it's a small shield that lands, it's going to prevent a death. Okay. So on pull here with boss, we definitely want... There goes PI. Really love that glow I brought in for PI too, by the way. We really want to get a Pet and Rift. And then one more Rift before the consumption. And we do see the consumption marked on nameplate. Those little tick marks, really, really helpful.
Breaking in 10.
A couple of executes on the ads. So don't count out executes even if it's a boss,
Breaking.
because most bosses usually have ads. Okay, so I have one more rift to give. We're approaching the first consumption. Penanting when the ads are near. Pink is in immune right now. Love that new display.
Breaking in 10.
And to prepare for the consume, we want full atonements in party.
Breaking.
Desperate Prayer and Fade are mandatory. And you just want to hit your torment rotation the best you can. Okay, so we have full atonements in party. Flash Shield is used to proc my 10% DR. Desperate Prayer and Fade. Notice the shield amount is displayed on his nameplate, that blue bar.
Breaking in
And the
10.
shield was 8 up. 6 torments for the win.
Breaking.
And let's see, my pet is 20 seconds away. What's my play here? I believe I just spam to get him back quickly, because we still want to get one in this phase and then have it back in time for the next consumption. So Radiance followed by Shield, proccing my Words of the Pious. We just got PI, but we're going to use it on the
Breaking
consumption.
in 10.
And if I remember right, well, it does line up with our Ascendants, so it's perfect. Okay, only got
Breaking.
5 torments there, not great, but sometimes that's all you get. Okay, so here goes my second rift. This is also going to be my CDR grab phase. So I'm spamming as quickly as I can to reset my pet, and we just got him back. Yeah, our Shaman's getting 8 up here, giving him some flash heals. Good sack from the tank. I would have liked to have
Breaking
seen
in
it a little
10.
sooner. Okay, we're sending a second rift. Actually, a third rift.
Breaking.
I have my mind control, fall back to my focus with focus targeting. Baited a little bit. So I have my Harsh Discipline proc. We have Raptures in party.
Breaking in 10.
Active dot on boss. Here goes Pet and Rift.
Breaking.
And Ascendance and PI pwned that shield. Pet Rift is out. 7 torments. And so, with enough haste, as in Lust and or PI,
Breaking
you
in
can
10.
fit 2 rifts into 1 pet window, and just getting a little bit more out of your torments that way. And I believe that's what we did there. I had 2 torments from Mind Blast
Breaking.
and 1 pet window. Okay, so let's see, we're in execute range. I should be able to get a lot of torments on boss. So pet, death, rift, penance, death was the rotation there. Working in a Radiance for coverage on the Shaman, who's in the middle of the cluster. Pain subbing myself just because I can. And we have
Breaking in
8
10.
torments for the win.
Breaking.
Okay, we have 1 trash pull left, 2 minutes 35 on the clock. We want to focus the dark red mob here. We have an attack in 5 seconds. I believe the play is Barrier. And I play it on the lot of us. Here goes Pet and Rift. Radiance was for the lead. 2 executes for the win.
Breaking in 10.
And this is where we had an accidental pull. So we're all kind of holding our breath because we're about to lose the key. So we
Breaking.
can't forget that we have a big hit coming in group. Pre-coat with Raptures. I'm calling for personals. Desperate Prayer was used. Dominate Mind was recaptured. And we have a second pet available here. Let's see what the play is. And this is a heavy poison dispel area.
Breaking in 10.
Switching my targets to keep my dots active.
Breaking.
Six torments. We have one more rift to go. 3 stack. Good dispel. And when it's just a rift window like that, I was high prioring my second penance to empower the rift. And for the win.
Breaking in 10.
So that was a +2. We got Fractional IO, love it. Still in the running for title. Pretty excited for my first title. I think I've had a pretty good season overall.
Breaking.
Looking forward to next season. And I think I splashed the overalls here if anyone wants to see. Turning off auto loot is a good idea if anyone is wondering. See, I thought I'd check. But yeah, I'm really happy with where my UI's landed. Every day I think I'm like maxed it out, but then the next day I do something new to it, which I totally never thought of, and it amplifies my gameplay. So I've done a lot to amplify all of my health bars, friendly and hostile. So my grid 2 has been amplified quite a bit. My hostile has been amplified quite a bit, and it's doing a lot to help. Okay, so here's a spread of the damage. Dark Reprimand doing really well. Entropic Rift and Pet on top. Here's a display of the healing. Atonement for the lead, pretty obviously. And yeah, that's that. So thanks everyone for tuning in. Please check out my Metafy if you're interested in private lessons. If you like any of my UI elements, they are open to all of my students or supporters of the channel. So please throw some support. And yeah, thanks again. And until next time, Disc.